How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new here, do me a huge favor, go down, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel before we get started. I'm revealing every single motorcycle in the collection. There are 20 plus motorcycles in the current garage, and we're going to talk about the first new motorcycle I am revealing. So we're revealing the first motorcycle to the collection. This is a bike you might have seen in some of my Instagram posts, and I possibly even have at this point in time a video up on the channel about this motorcycle, the Bullet, spitting some flames. So let's talk about this bike. When we picked it up, what's the story on it, and kind of what condition it's currently in, and the future plans for this thing. It was somewhere in between 2013 and 2015 that this bike was picked up. My dad at the time was looking for a Bullet for a reasonable price, and there in Wisconsin there weren't too many for sale. And he found this bike, I imagine, on Craigslist. And we traveled 4 hours, maybe 4.5 hours to go pick this thing up. And it was in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking middle of nowhere. We traveled 4 hours upstate Wisconsin, and it was just forest, trees, and a couple remote houses here and there. And then eventually we picked this thing up. This bike only has, at this time, 7,700 miles. And my dad's probably ridden it probably 400 or 500 miles since we picked it up. There was supposed to be a video up on this channel already at the time I'm filming this, even in September, that I couldn't post because the rear tire went flat on me. It was supposed to be an exhaust video because this thing spits flame balls. This is a Gold Star muffler with a bigger jetted carb, and it spits fire and it sounds pretty gnarly. I'll start it up in just a second here. It also leaks oil. As you can see, there's a couple of oil stains already forming. I started it up. When it's not started and it's done leaking, it stops leaking, but it does leak because it needs a couple of things fixed. It needs some breathers that have some tears in them and whatnot. For those who do not know what this is basically the only reason that Royal Enfield still exists today. These bikes were continuing to be made in India for a very, very long time. And I believe in the front, it actually says Royal Enfield India right there. I'm pretty sure that's what the EI stands for. But recently they decided to bring back other Royal Enfield models and bring back the whole name, just like a couple of the older British bikes. But at the time, Royal Enfield completely failed, but this bike continued to sell. This is a single 500, again, just like the GB, and it's not fast, like, at all. The GB is like semi-sporty. This bike is extremely slow, like very, very slow. It's a nice little cruiser. It looks nice. It's an old British machine. It may be a 2002, 2001 model year, but it has technology from the 50s. Nothing has changed in this bike since the 50s. They did a refresh in 2004, 5, somewhere along there, but before that, all of these bikes have been the same since 50s, 60s, little to no change in them. This bike is the first year that they introduced electric start. Yeah, it took them until the 2000s to introduce electric start into these machines. Overall, this bike is very nice. It's very clean. I would take it out for a ride in the video, but unfortunately the tire's flat. Future plans for this bike go: fixed a couple of leaks. The breather pipe needs to be replaced. No big deal. That should be a very easy replacement. Probably an oil change on it. The carburetor needs to be changed back to the original, as well as the exhaust. That's another future plan. The reason for that is this thing is insanely loud, and you kind of feel bad for riding it because it's actually that loud. Plus, it doesn't run quite right. The bike doesn't accelerate smoothly and stop smoothly with the bigger carb, and it's just not tuned properly. We're gonna put it back to stock so it's not insanely loud and not making anyone mad. Plus, it still sounds good with its stock muffler, and we want it to just run smoothly and be able to just start, run, and operate. And unfortunately, at this time, even if it didn't have a flat, the bike's not the smoothest thing to ride, and just it pops like crazy. And again, it spits flames, and there's gonna be a whole video on that. Before we change out the muffler, I'm gonna get plenty of exhaust clips with this thing, so stay tuned for that. Another thing that we did was we swapped the gearing position. So these bikes, the gearbox is sitting right here. These bikes are British bikes, so they have the gear lever on this side. But for the American market, what they did is they put a shaft and they relocated this gear lever to the other side and had the brake on this side. The thing is, when the shifter was on the other side, switching gears was extremely sloppy. Like, you could not tell if you were in first, neutral, second, and I mean, this bike isn't the most direct thing anyways. Like, it has a little bit of play. And there's a kit you can buy to convert the shifter back to the correct side for these bikes, and you would think that, oh, but you know, I'm used to driving motorcycles on the other side, but when you get onto the bike, you kind of just immediately know. This is the only motorcycle I've rode with the shifter on the right side of the bike. And most of the motorcycles I ride, the shifter is on the left, because we're in America. So you would think that when I step onto this thing, I would be pressing the brake when I would go to shift gears, but your brain automatically adjusts, and it's kind of weird that you know that the shifter's on the other side. And so it's not really the biggest deal in the world, and it's definitely something that you should consider if you own one that has it on the left and you want to get rid of some of that slop. And then another thing we did was we added a dual seat, a rear seat. At the time, and even still, there's not a lot of motorcycles we have that are currently in operational condition that have rear seats. The only two that I'm thinking of is the Bullet and the Buell. And the Buell isn't the most comfortable because it's a crotch rocket, and this thing is a nice cruiser, so it's probably the only cruiser currently running that has a rear seat. And of course, when I was younger, definitely wanted to get a ride on the motorcycle. Now I can ride it myself, so it's cool. Anyways, I'm gonna start it up and give you guys a little exhaust sound. So the bike does have a little bit of heat into it. There's the neutral light that is very dimly lit. I think it should start without the choke. I'm pretty sure I don't have the fuel on, but as you could tell, it pops like crazy and it's really loud. It's the loudest bike that we probably own, and I mean, the GB's like enjoyably loud. Motorcycles are loud to begin with, and I have some pretty loud cars with my Mustang, so I don't see the point of this thing being over the top loud to make everyone mad. And plus, it's also not enjoyable to ride because you just want to be cruising. This thing's not like a crotch rocket or anything. You're just cruising and the thing's popping like crazy, so it's not fun. Well, it's fun, but it gets old after a little while. More motorcycles to come on the channel, a lot of fun stuff, so make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.